At the end of Two and a Half Men, Charlie Harper's head was hit by a piano. Fans of the show have been wondering for years why the main character got such a bad finish. We now know. It was Chuck Lorre's way of getting back at him for the most expensive TV meltdown ever. Charlie Sheen's tiger blood rants and demands for $2 million per episode are part of this story. It tells how Hollywood's highest-paid star destroyed a sitcom empire and why it took everyone 12 years to forgive him. Chuck Lorre and Lee Aronson made Two and a Half Men, which began in 2003. Lorre got the idea from a chat he had with a friend who was divorced while he was living with his single brother. The idea for one of the most popular shows of all time came from this conversation in a Los Angeles bar on February 17, 2002. But the basic idea was not the same. CBS thought the story might be too controversial at first, so they changed it to be about a single dad, his gay brother, and his straight kid. They offered a setup that was easier. His relaxed, jingle writer brother, his tense chiropractor brother, and his nephew. The last idea came to mind, and the main thought was formed. It was hard to get the show on the air. CBS almost scrapped the show because each episode would cost $1.2 million, which is a lot more than other comedies. The pilot was set to film just 2 weeks ago. And talking about the group contracts again, CBS finally gave the go-ahead on August 15, 2003. The famous beach house set from the show was based on Lorre's home in Malibu. On September 1, 2003, designers went to his house to make a staging version of it. Even the theme song, Manly Men, was written by Lorre in just 47 minutes, right before shots started. It wasn't easy to choose the title either. None of the names they came up with felt right. Some ideas were My Brother's Keeper and Three's a Crowd. Finally, on September 5, 2003, 17 days before the show's launch, they chose Two and a Half Men. Getting cast was full of ups and downs. You might not have picked Charlie Sheen to play Charlie Harper at first. John Stamos was given the part. He said no, though. It took Sheen a while to agree to be in a TV show after being asked. Lorre went to his house and talked to him about it for almost 12 hours. Sheen finally gave in. John Cryer first tried out to play Charlie in the part of Alan, but was turned down because he was too nice. Tony Shalhoub was considered for the part of Alan, but in the end, Cryer won the part after a coin toss. Aegis T. Jones played Jake, the nephew who was very young. The directors loved him, even though he was the last kid to try out. There was a scare when he got taller before shooting began, but they kept him and joked about it on the show. It wasn't always easy to film. Charles Sheen and John Cryer fought about how to say a line during the first week. Sheen was so mad that he left the set for 3 hours. They got along better later, which was a surprise, and their chemistry on screen became one of the best things about the show. CBS didn't expect as many people to watch the first show, which aired on September 22, 2003. Some critics didn't like the show and said it was boring and rude, but regular watchers loved it. Even more people were watching by the 4th episode, and women liked the show the most. CBS was surprised by this, so they changed how they advertised to get more women to watch. The show also got fans all over the world. It was shown in 37 countries by January 2004. It had its German launch on March 12, 2004, and 6.72 million people watched it, setting new records in Germany for an American show. The show became well-known very quickly. By the end of its first season in May 2004, it had 15.31 million watchers per episode, putting it in 7th place on CBS's list. CBS changed it to Monday at 9 p.m., which is a popular time. Fans of JAG, the show it took the place of, were upset about the second season spot. The pace was very fast. To keep up, writers worked long hours. During the second season, 3 of them had to go to the hospital because they were so tired. The show's popularity led to results no one expected. In 2005, 22% more people applied to chiropractic school because of Alan Harper's character, Charlie, and 37% more of his signature bowling shirts were sold. Over 16.5 million people watched each episode of Two and a Half Men by the end of its 3rd season in May 2006. It was CBS's most popular comedy show. It had some of the most expensive ads, with 30-second spots costing $414,000. CBS showed a marathon of fan-favorite episodes during prime time on September 18, 2006. Charlie Sheen became popular for his role as Charlie Harper on Two and a Half Men. He played a happy single man who dated a lot, drank too much, and didn't care about the rules. The show was one of the most watched on TV from 2003 to 2011. During its peak, from 2008 to 2009, the show was the most watched on TV. Every show was seen by more than 15 million people. The figure will be remembered for Sheen's natural charm. He was funny, but he was also greedy and flawed, which made him easy to relate to. A lot of guys saw him as living the dream life they had always wanted. The show was even more interesting because Sheen's real life was a lot like the character. People like how it mixed fact and fiction. Sheen also made history when he became the TV star with the most money. If you remember, his contract was up for renewal in 2010, and he was already making $825,000 per show. Yes, Sheen did want more. Everyone was shocked when he asked for $2 million per show. Fox and Warner Brothers, who made the show, offered him $1 million, but he turned them down. Things got so heated that the talks went on during an NBA game. Sheen finally agreed to a deal right before CBS had to present its fall shows. Including extra money, he made almost $2 million per show. It was the most money ever made by TV. The deal was already crazy, but Sheen's personal life at the time made it even stranger. In late 2009, just a few months before, he had been arrested for hitting his wife. But they paid him anyway because they knew the show would not be the same without him. What Sheen did behind the scenes was crazy. He showed up drunk to film a scene in season 7. He had to lean on furniture to stand up, and he forgot his lines. This scene had to be changed quickly, and his lines had to go to other actors. Sheen also got into a fight with the show's creator, Chuck Lorre. In order to get changes, he often said bad things about the writing and even tore up scripts in front of the cast and team. Charlie Sheen has had problems for a long time. In 1998, he took too much cocaine, which sent him to rehab for the first time. His domestic life would have a hard time for a long time after this. Sheen was arrested for beating up his wife, Brooke Mueller, on Christmas Day, 2009. He went back to rehab, but things didn't get better. He messed up a hotel room in New York City in October 2010 while drunk and naked. It caused him $7,000 in damage, and he had to go to rehab again. Things were at their worst by January 2011. CBS and Warner Brothers, which makes 2.5 Men, agreed to stop making the show so Sheen could get help. He tried to calm down, but instead he became very angry. He threw a 36-hour party with drugs and chaos, and several people got hurt. Sheen said he was okay though. He told people, "I closed my eyes and made it so," which means he thought he was better. Sheen's anger toward 2.5 Men creator Chuck Lorre hit its peak in February 2011. He slandered Lorre on the radio by calling him names like maggot and earthworm. He even spoke Lorre's Hebrew name in a way that many people found rude. Sheen talked about having tiger blood and Adonis DNA and acting like he couldn't be beat. He called himself a rock star from Mars and told Lorre they should fight. His crazy rant shocked everyone and made the news right away. After that, Sheen started showing up on a lot of TV shows. In talks, he talked about how much he liked drugs and said he was smoking 7-gram rocks of cocaine. He even said, "I'm high." This person is named Charlie Sheen. "You will die if you do it." He said a lot of strange things during these appearances like winning and tiger blood, which became popular terms. Sheen started Twitter on March 1st, 2011, and in just one day, she broke the record for most followers in a single day. A lot of people watched, even though they didn't get what he was saying. Warner Brothers and CBS didn't take long to answer. On March 7th, 2011, he was fired from 2.5 Men. Everyone was shocked. He was the best-paid TV star, getting $1.8 million per show. He was still let go by Warner Brothers. They told him that what he was doing was risky and not okay. They wrote him an 11-page letter saying he was out of control, had insulted Chuck Lorre, the author of the show, and might have even broken the law by giving cocaine to other people. They also said he looked sick and doing harm to himself. About 200 people who worked on the show were also fired, and 8 episodes were canceled, costing the company about $10 million. When a studio decided to stand by its values instead of making money, it was a rare moment. It didn't go over well with Sheen. He sued Warner Brothers and Chuck Lorre for $100 million just 3 days after being fired. He told them they couldn't fire him and that he was ready to work again. His lawyers said Warner Brothers agreed with Lorre that Sheen was to blame for all the problems, which was not fair. There was also a big fight over where to decide the case. Warner Brothers said that Sheen's deal called for arbitration instead of going to court with a jury. A judge said the case had to go to arbitration in June 2011. Everything was set by September 26, 2011. Warner Brothers and Sheen made a deal, but they didn't say what it was. Few people thought Sheen would get more than $125 million. This would include $25 million right away for work he had already done and a share of the show's rerun income, which could add up to $100 million over time. After Charlie Sheen, CBS had to quickly find a new star or the show might be canceled for good. The search wasn't simple. Hugh Grant was almost cast at one point. The producers told him they would pay him $1 million per show, and things were going well. But on May 10th, Grant quickly quit, saying he didn't agree with the creative ideas. This made things very difficult for everyone. Advertisers were going to see the network in a few days, and they still didn't have a candidate for Sheen. Ashton Kutcher's name then came up on May 12th. It was easy to make the deal, and he signed a $20 million deal for a season with 26 shows. It wasn't as much as Sheen's $1.8 million per show, but it was still a huge salary, just in time to make everyone calm down before the talk. Some people didn't think Kutcher was the best choice. Even though he was funny and attractive, most of his fans were younger than the people who watched the show. Chuck Lorre, who made the show, still believed in him and told them they were lucky to have him. The first time we saw Kutcher was in an episode on September 19th, 2011, where his character, Walden Schmidt, was introduced. It was very important. Over 28 million people watched, which is twice as many as usually watch the show. As the show began, Charlie Harper's funeral took place. It was then revealed that he had died in Paris after being hit by a train. It was clear that this dark humor meant to say goodbye to Sheen's character and make room for someone new. Charlie Harper and Walden Schmidt were not at all the same, but Walden was awkward, emotional, and going through a rough breakup. They were both rich and good with women. He brought his own style to the part, which made Walden feel very different from Charlie. The makers of the show quickly made a link between Walden and Alan Harper. Alan, who had always been the one who didn't know what he was doing, became Walden's kind of teacher. This switch of roles made the show funnier and kept it feeling new. Kutcher later said that Walden's character had changed a lot from what he had been told at first, which is interesting. Though he didn't say much, what he did say shows how much the show changed as they worked on it. The show's focus changed when Walden showed up. New stories were made about his life as a tech billionaire and his problems with love and relationships. In one episode, Walden tried to get his ex-wife back, but things went wrong in funny ways. In another, he bought a $600,000 car on the spur of the moment, which caused problems with Alan. It was also written so that Walden had more emotional times, which showed his softer side while still keeping the humor alive. Besides these characters, other characters were also changed. Angus T. Jones played Jake Harper, but he didn't have a big part. Walden became more like a naive person, so Jake wasn't as important to the story. Jake showed up less and less over time, and by season 11, he was hardly ever on the show. Jones began playing on 2.5 Men when he was only 10 years old. It looked like a dream come true at first. People loved the show so much. It was like a dream come true. He became one of the most well-known kid actors on TV. Things started to feel different for Angus as he aged, though. The jokes, the stories, and the show's general mood no longer made sense to him. He knew something was wrong by the time he was 19. In his heart, he didn't like how the show went against what he believed in. All of us were shocked by Angus in 2012. For a religious group called the Forerunner Chronicles, he was in a movie. People were told to stop watching the show. He said it was filthy. He said that being on the show made him feel like he wasn't being honest. It's not possible for you to say you fear God and do things like that, he said. His words got around very quickly. Fans were shocked by what they heard. How could someone say bad things about a show that made them famous and rich? It wasn't a surprise. For years, Angus had been having trouble with this. He made $300,000 for each show, but he felt bad about it. He didn't like the jokes on the show about drugs and sex or the message it sent. Everyone on the set saw a difference. He wasn't the happy, useful kid they used to know. He shut down and became quiet. He even asked the writers to trim down the part his character played in scenes that upset him, which made things tense behind the scenes. Why did this big change happen? Angus had a new religion around this time. He began going to a Seventh-day Adventist church and was very religious about it. He decided to live his life in line with what he believed. That's why he chose to speak up. But there was a mix of support and opposition. Some religious groups praised him for being brave, for following his faith. Some people in Hollywood thought it was rude and not professional. The debate blew up, and Angus's comments took center stage instead of the show. Angus said sorry the very next day. He said he didn't mean to be rude to his co-workers or act like he wasn't thankful for what the show did for him. But he didn't change what he said about what was on the show. Things got even worse after that. He had trouble getting along with the cast and team. Jon Cryer and Ashton Kutcher was among the people who had a hard time understanding what he did. Even Chuck Lorre, who made the show, was mad. Angus felt alone more and more. CBS said in 2013 that Angus would no longer be a regular cast member. He wasn't seen at all by season 11. 2014 marked the end of the chaos. He wasn't going to be back for the last season. He saw this as a chance to start over. The University of Colorado Boulder was where he went to school. He focused on his religion and studied the environment and Jewish history. He told someone in 2016 that he finally felt at peace. But there was a twist that no one saw coming. Angus came back for the last episode of 2.5 Men in 2015. While his part was small, it was important because it brought Jake Harper's story full circle. Jake comes back as a wealthy adult who made a lot of money by investing the money his uncle gave him. There was a lot going on in the last episode of 2.5 Men. CBS began to hint at it months before it ran. The title of the end was Of Course He's Dead, and the ads made it seem like Charlie Harper might be back. People were unsure if Charlie Sheen would show up because the ads didn't say for sure. This made everyone guess. The cast and team worked hard to get people excited as the date got closer. There was a show on late night with David Letterman and Jon Cryer on February 9th, 2015, and said the ending was crazy. People talked even more after he said that fans would be shocked. After a week, on February 12th, 2015, the next to last show aired. There was a big surprise at the end. Alan got a box that was meant for Charlie. Fans came up with a lot of ideas, and the hashtag became popular online. Even more was made clear by Charlie Sheen. He said in a tweet the day before the end that no one would see him on the show. He instead made fun of being on the Goldbergs. Fans didn't know if he meant it or was just teasing them. The production team, on the other hand, kept everything a secret. The last episode was shot in January 2015. The players didn't even get full scripts. That's all the guest stars got, and some words were blacked out. 13.52 million people watched the ending on February 19th, 2015. The scene with the piano falling was the most memorable. Someone who looked like Charlie Harper rang the doorbell at the beach house. All of a sudden, a grand piano fell from the sky and hit him. It only took 15 seconds, but everyone who saw it was shocked. A real piano that weighed almost 1,000 pounds and a Charlie Sheen double were used to film it. It looked real and was safe because everything was carefully planned. There was a zoom out right after the piano fell. It showed Chuck Lorre, the person who made the show, sitting down, taking a shot. He said the famous Charlie Sheen line, winning. Then another piano fell and crushed him too. The finish was crazy, and it seemed like Lorre was making fun of Sheen. Some people didn't agree with the result. Some people thought it was rude and small-minded, while others thought it was brave and funny. Social media went crazy. In just a few days, the piano drop scene was talked about more than 500,000 times. Talk shows and celebrity news shows couldn't stop talking about it. Charlie Sheen even responded. In an interview on February 20th, 2015, he said that the piano drop was silly but worked. He laughed and said it was an honor to have a piano dropped on him. The finale did more than just end the show. It solidified Chuck Lorre's status as one of the best guys who ever made sitcoms. Lorre became one of TV's most famous producers thanks to 2.5 Men. Hit shows like The Big Bang Theory and Mom became possible because of Lorre. The success of the show also helped bring back the standard sitcom format with multiple cameras, even though comedies with only one camera were becoming more popular at the time. As soon as 2.5 Men finished, the main cast went their separate ways in life and work. After the show was over, each of them had their own problems and chances. From 2012 to 2014, Charlie Sheen was in the 100-episode FX show Anger Management, but it didn't bring him back to his old level of fame. Sheen told everyone in 2015 that he had HIV, which made things harder for him in his home and work life. Even with these setbacks, he has been working to get his business back on track. He surprised everyone by coming back to TV in 2023 with a guest spot on Chuck Lorre's Mac Show Bookie, which was a sign of a comeback. In all 12 seasons, Jon Cryer played Alan Harper. He then did well in other roles. For his part, he won 2 Emmys, showing how good he is at acting comedy roles. He played Lex Luthor on Supergirl and other Arrowverse shows after the show, which showed that he could also handle more serious parts. He went back to comedies in 2024 as the lead in NBC's Extended Family, which kept him busy in the genre. For his part as Jake Harper, Angus T. Jones went in a totally different direction. He told people to stop watching the show in public in 2012, calling it filth. After leaving the main group in season 10, he only came back for the 2015 finale. He stopped playing after that and focused on school and growing as a person. He went to the University of Colorado Boulder and then worked for a production company with Sean Diddy Combs' son, Justin Combs. Fans were surprised when he had a small role in Bookie with Charlie Sheen in 2023. After leaving the show, Ashton Kutcher, who took over for Sheen in season 9, did very well in his work. His work on Netflix's The Ranch spanned from 2016 to 2020. Along with playing, Kutcher became famous for investing in the tech business. His well-known part as Michael Kelso came back in 2023 in that 90s show, a spin-off of that 70s show. These different paths show how job changes can happen quickly after a big show. Some had a hard time getting better, while others had success in new areas or moved on totally. Charlie Sheen's story was one of the most intense. He went from being a very well-paid star to a story that showed how Hollywood can get out of hand. In an interview in 2021, 10 years after his meltdown, he said he felt bad about what happened and said he could have handled things much better. He told me there were 55 ways to handle it, and I chose the 56th one. His new attitude, which was very different from his earlier rebellious one, showed that he was more self-aware. In January 2011, CBS and Warner Brothers stopped working with him, so he could go to rehab. This was the start of his downfall. Instead of focused on getting better, he did strange things in public and in interviews, like calling himself a warlock with tiger blood and saying he was winning. Warner Brothers fired him in March 2011 because of his bad behavior and hurtful comments about Chuck Lorre. Not only did Sheen lose his big salary, but his image also took a hit. Another time, his FX show Anger Management didn't do well with viewers and stopped after 2 seasons. Sheen said that his requests for more money were a mistake and a part of his downward spiral, which was caused by drugs and stress. His story shows how fragile success can be and how quick ego and addiction can destroy it. People have talked about making 2.5 Men again, but it doesn't look likely. Jon Cryer has said he doesn't think he wants to work with Sheen again, even though he wished him well. Cryer said that Sheen's actions in the last few years of the show had an effect that would last. The author, Chuck Lorre, has also been careful. Even though Lorre and Sheen worked together on Bookie again, their fight from before is still very much present. Changes in society make things even harder. The show's humor, especially when it comes to Charlie Harper's relationships, might not be funny these days. The cast's different job paths are also a problem. As for Kutcher, he is busy with other projects and his tech businesses, while Angus T. Jones has stopped acting. There are also financial reasons, since it might not make sense to bring back such an expensive show in today's market. Fans are still interested, but a reboot would have a hard time and probably need a lot of changes to work for today's crowds.